All right, everyone, welcome. Hello. How's everyone doing today? Good. I want to make sure, first of all, to thank you for coming, and also to make sure for those folks in the back or anyone, can you hear me okay if I talk at this level? I always want to ask that just to make sure that I'm not screaming and yelling too loudly, but also speaking loudly enough that you can hear me. Before you leave, if you didn't get a chance, as I mentioned earlier, there's some promotional material that you can take with you on the way out. My contact information's there available. My name is Taryn, and today we're going to talk about something called posture reset, the screen time spine crisis. We started a video just a few minutes before we got started recording here, and I wanted to throw that up there on this. If anybody get a little bit of information or insight from that video, just from the couple minutes just listening to it, it was kind of staggering, wasn't it? So as we go through the presentation today, we're going to spend the next 45 minutes roughly. I'm going to leave about 10, 15 minutes so that we have time to do a little Q&A and ask any questions at the end. Can everybody see the screen okay, or do you prefer the lights off for more contrast? What we're going to discuss is something that's very, very critical, and in my opinion, something that doesn't get talked up enough about both posture and the correlation with things of looking like this most of the day, right? Any of us in here guilty of that? Right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we're guilty of it, maybe our kids, maybe our grandkids, or anybody else, and what can we do to combat that and try to avoid some of the ways that we can learn strategies of determining how we can best keep our posture in good alignment. Because again, as I mentioned, I think that this does not get talked about today in current events, and we'll go through why my opinion on that kind of is backed up with some evidence here. But let me throw a question out just to start with. How many hours per day do you look at a screen, including some of these devices? And again, if is it more than an hour, maybe? Is it more than 2 hours? That's something that we want to ask ourselves. And also, again, what about our kids? Those of us who have children or grandchildren, how many hours are they spending, right? And so it's so vital and crucial to think about, because this is a growing problem, an epidemic, and it's been like this for about 20 years. Back in the mid-2000s, we had something known as the iPhone that developed. And why that's so important is because before that, as we know, back in the 1980s, 90s, cell phones were becoming prevalent. But the big thing was you didn't see people like this on cell phones back in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't until about 2005 that we started seeing that. Why? Because in the 80s and 90s, the cell phones were just used primarily for talking, and it wasn't until maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, oh, we can text, and that started creeping up on our neck. What's really happened, and you've probably already seen this, not only cell phones, but tablets and iPads and Kindles even. Now what's going on is that we're really focused on bringing that head forward. In the video, the gentleman was mentioning how our head is approximately 20 pounds. Now, I got a big head, so I've got probably a 35-pound head. But what happens is when you have a 20-pound head on average, when you're bringing it forwards, at every angle and degree, it's going to be increasing. And so that's one of the things that we have to look at. Some other statistics that are kind of scary right here is that the average adult spends about 7+ hours per day. That's a lot more than an hour or two a day, right? That is frightening. And the average person checks their phone about 58 to 96 times a day. It's incredible, and it's scary, right? That's the thing that's kind of worrisome. We're seeing this every day. For example, when you go out to dine at the restaurants, when you go there and everybody's sitting down and you see people with the menus. Back in the old school days, we used to have our menu and we used to talk like humans and communicate. Now, what do we see? You already get what I'm getting at. Right, exactly. You see people sitting there and they're all looking at their phones. It's very depressing, and it's just almost pathetic in some ways, and we really need to correct that. Trust me, this is not a bashing phones and technology for the whole hour presentation. I believe technology is wonderful. I think there's a lot of great benefits. But with that said, we have to be careful. And today we're going to really intersect and integrate why those dangers are affecting our health, both physically and also mentally too. Okay. So as I mentioned just a few minutes ago about the head, so again, it's going to depend on if they're looking at an adolescent, an average adult, or who have, whatever you have. But in this case, someone who has a 10 to 12-pound head that's neutral, when you bring it forward in each number of degrees, it varies because, again, in posture is called neutral spine. A neutral spine should be theoretically just standing there so that your head is not, 20, 25 pounds and 30 pounds and so forth. Yes, ma'am.
You know what I think is here was when I forget to talk about the restaurant. both parents are on a thing, the kid is being ignored, so they either give him or her a cell phone or something. The kid becomes a discipline problem because it wants attention. The parents are in their computers.
Well, yeah, to what you said, just kind of to piggyback on that, you're right that like back in the day when televisions came out, those became a babysitter in some capacity, and some parents loved that because they could put the child in front of the TV. Now that's changed today. Now the children that are growing up don't know any different, that when they have a cell phone put in their hands, that is becoming their babysitter now. Not even the TV. I have 4 children and they don't even care about the TV anymore. That's old school. That's antiquated. They look at it and they say, "Where's my device?" And that's really a negative statement of what's going on with how the children are being raised, because that's going to be a big portion of this presentation. That's a good example that you said. You're right. It's not only just at the dinner tables, but it's everywhere we go, and it's really, really scary. But that's dangerous. If in one of the pictures in the video, for those of us that saw that a few minutes ago, the woman that was in the video, her head's probably weighing somewhere about 50 to 60 pounds because she was pretty hunched over. You could see how that would negatively impact our body. And what's happening is neck pain affecting about 70% of the people. By a raise of hands, anybody have any neck or back pain at all, generally speaking? I think that was about 70% of hands that went up. The other 30%, you got to tell me your secret. Let me know what. But then, poor posture also linked to being physically tired, exhausted, and maybe even some headaches. And so I said the word epidemic. It truly is. It's a silent epidemic, not being discussed too much. And hopefully we're going to really open this up now and talk about it a lot more. It's not only globally, but again, it's definitely accelerating with technology use. All right. In the senior world, what's happening is, and we'll just go ahead and give you the whole illustration. We're going to see a good illustration in a few moments, but in a neutral spine with good posture from a frontal plane, we don't want our spine to be out of alignment. Some people with a frontal plane, you may see the spine curving this way laterally, and it could be something like a scoliosis, and it might throw their posture off like this. And then from here in the sagittal plane, what I'm showing you here is that you may have some things like lordosis, of a sticking the gut out where people are walking almost like this. What's really happening these days now is the word kyphosis, where they're going like this in the upper thoracic and leaning forward. You'll see some seniors, in fact, something that's very common is that you'll see people walking as they age like this, looking down to the ground. They're looking down to the ground maybe because they don't want to fall. They think that that might help them, that they're watching closely, or they're also shuffling their feet. You'll see that too as they're going. But what's happening is in this plane that I'm showing you, it's creating what's called a C-curve of the spine, and that's not neutral spine. Neutral spine would be an S-curve. Again, I'll tell you and show you that as it makes more sense. But again, it's definitely associated with fall risk. I did a whole presentation last time I was here on how to prevent falling, and one of the things that we discussed was that when people are focused and looking on the floor, more likely they're going to take a tumble, and so that's one of the things to avoid. And also, it's associated if people become more dependent, so that they're not able to do things on their own in terms of prevention of falls, and if they're losing strength. One of the concluding kind of summaries from the fall prevention thing was that we did some myth busting. It wasn't age that was a cause of falling. It was a weakness of the muscles and the weakness of the spine, which all of us, the great thing is we can't do anything about aging. That's fine. But we can do something about strength training. By a show of hands, who does any form of strength training exercises by a show of hands? All right, that's not bad. Okay, good. I like that. Those hands went up. That's excellent. All right, and then breathing as well. When we are forward in our spine, or if our neck is down, it's cutting the capacity of air that we get in our lungs. So something like 30% possibly can be restricted from that. And which in turn, if you don't have enough oxygen in your body, we're certainly not going to be able to be as physically active as we'd like to. And so we're going to take a little bit of time here to talk about kind of what's going on now and in the next generation. This is scary. Some of these stats are really, really terrifying. And so when you look at the screen and see here what we have with the children of ages 8 to 12, teens, and what else is going on with kids, The devices are very dangerous in this case. Back in the day when we all grew up, before those things were invented, what did we do? We went outside and we rode bikes, we played, we ran out, away from the house with kids. And what did our mothers tell us? They would yell, "Come back before it gets dark, come back for dinner," right? That doesn't happen today. That's unfortunately changed. Now it's like, "Little Timmy, you've already been on there for 3 hours, so just one more hour, you got to get off." That's unfortunately what's happening. I'll use myself case in point. I'm a guilty advocate of doing that because unfortunately, a lot of times life happens, we get crazy, and yes, I am guilty of sin of giving my little ones a babysitting device so that way I can get caught up on my stuff. And I feel guilty about that. I feel terrible that I'm contributing to that. And I'm really, the reason why I was looking forward to this presentation was to be very transparent and kind of self-reflect on what I can do to learn from this presentation, because there's a lot that I can learn and take away from this myself, okay? And so, again, these numbers are terrifying, as I mentioned. Those are just from average statistics, from empirical data from the last 10 to 15 years of studies and it's getting worse. This is, by the way, I don't think it's getting any better. We're not doing enough to address this, and that's why it's so critical. Average age of someone having their first smartphone, 10 to 11 years old, right? Yes, ma'am.
I can get worse because when I was teaching, we discovered that the optimum learning age is like between 1 and 3.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so they'll probably start getting them to them when.
That's a good point. Yeah, because when they start so young, that's so impressionable. That's very hard to change that, isn't it? And the thing is, let me ask this by show of hands. That's a good point too. Show of hands. Who has children in here in the room? Anybody have kids? Okay, and then those of us, any grandchildren? Anybody in the room? All right, very good. So we could be examples to that, can't we? There's some things that we can do to help our kids and their kids in this generation, aren't there? We're going to take a look at some of those slides, and I would encourage us that we need to do that and be the forerunners of hopefully changing that. But what we're seeing though with the kids, and I'll go ahead and go to the next one here. These are some other issues that are happening. Kids as young as 8 is when we first start now today seeing that. But as you were mentioning, this slide's probably going to be updated a few years from now. It'll probably say like kids from age 1, because if they're starting that, if you think about it, when an infant is born and, their posture is such that usually they're lying on their back and they're sleeping, and that is perfect neutral spine, by the way, for sleeping. I did a sleep presentation one time here as well, and actually the harder the surface, sleeping on the floor is the most beneficial for our spine, believe it or not. And with little babies, if they're sleeping, their spine is actually the way it's intended to be. And again, look at toddlers, look at little kids. They're so agile, and when they're running around, they're on their tippy toes, and they'll take a tumble and they'll be right back up and they bounce up. But you look at them, and again, none of them naturally go like this. Well, I'm talking about little 2 or 3-year-olds that are learning to walk and crawl. Well, they don't walk, they just run, right? They just go into it. But you notice that, don't you? That their posture is something to look at because they have not trained themselves yet to do this and then have a heavier head that goes forward. But the problem is that is what's happening today. There's more technology. Parents are becoming busier with work and stress and life, and so that it is easier now at a younger age to give a little one, an infant, like a little device so that they can start. All of the toy manufacturers are smart. They're mimicking that. They are making cell phone toys and any kind of tablet toys that are going to those little infants because they know parents would be dependent on that and use that to say, oh, this is perfect. We can get them started early on that. And then it does happen because also if they have friends or siblings that they're copying, remember, they're looking at us, right? They mimic what we're doing. So if we're doing that at the dinner table or at the restaurant, that's what's happening, right? Or some of the parents, like you were mentioning earlier, are actually deliberately having their kids do that, which is terrible. And so again, in my opinion, all of this we can address, and that's what we need to start doing right now. I said earlier that it's happened since about 2005 when iPhones first became popular, and then Androids and so forth. We have all different types of devices now. And as technology advances, these companies are getting smarter, and they are intentionally making us more codependent on their technology and their devices, which is scary. There's a lot of things that are worrisome when it comes to technology. But again, When it comes to neck pain and other postural problems with kids, this is something that really needs to be addressed. And again, I know the first part of the presentation seems kind of doom and gloom, but as we get towards the end of the presentation, the good news is there's going to be things that we can do to address and get better at it. So as we go to this one here, talking about the neck problem, up to 60% of teens reporting neck pain. That's significantly more than we had when we were growing up with our kids as teens or when we were teens. We didn't have this issue. And so, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of causes that can happen because, as we know in studies, not only is it a correlation between technology and the neck problems and the posture that we're talking about, but it's a causation as well. So, correlation and causality with research showing that there's things like neck strain, shoulder pain, headaches, eye fatigue, a lot of issues going on here. And so what that can do to our musculoskeletal system, a heavy phone like I have, mine is one of the big smartphone deluxe pro mega ones that weighs about 10,000 pounds. And it can link to increasing this symptoms by 2 to 3 times the more we're doing that. So, for example, if you're, my laptop bag, that's another device, putting it over the shoulder and walking, long distances with it. Things like a heavy phone, or even doing this, holding that phone for a long time, for an hour, and then they're like, my neck. Then another thing we didn't even talk about yet, about 6 years ago, what happened? About 6 years ago to the day, roughly, in fact. Anybody remember about March 15th or so, about 2020? Yeah, exactly. The pandemic started, and when that happened, everything went to Zoom and remote and such. That was a great negative impact in terms of a problem happening with society, schools, churches, get-togethers, even this place. Everything was affected. We become more reliant on like our laptops and screens. And at schools for the kids, going back to them, they had to sit down and they had to be looking at a computer screen all the time and learn their lesson plans and such. It took a while before we get them back into the classrooms. Unfortunately, with that said, we're still feeling the residual effects of that. And still, some schools are advocating, saying, you know what, this whole remote distance thing is actually pretty good. And even workplaces, now employers are still saying, you don't have to come to the office, just stay at home. And people are communicating less interpersonally and more via the social network way, kind of, and that's what's happening. That's what we're seeing. So, some of the things that will happen with both the integration of screen time and our bodies and physical activity, you can see some of the problem areas that we have, such as, again, I mentioned, you don't see kids outdoors anymore. It's really frustrating and it's kind of depressing too. The muscular development, we'll talk a little bit more in depth and detail about that. Poor posture habits, we're going to really hammer that home today. Before we leave, I want to make sure everybody, again, gets the good benefits of what can be done to address those issues. Just a general lower fitness activity level, and then maybe even being more sedentary, right? We sit enough as it is. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
The other thing I noticed being the daycare,
Mm-hmm.
not only is the physical, but the world is teaching your kids another set of morals, maybe, or principles, the mental and emotional, not just the physical.
Well, that's true too. On your point, I noticed when my kids are at the YMCA and the daycare, it's funny that you said that. I was just thinking about that. I didn't put this on the presentation, but you reminded me that one of the things that's going on at the daycare at the YMCA where I've seen, and I'm not picking on them, by the way. I'd probably be the same if I was with them. But the people that were watching the kids were kind of just hanging out, and I was like, where are the children at? I looked over, and they were all grouped over watching a big TV. And I was like, wait a minute, they were like that when I dropped them off a couple hours ago. They're still in there watching. And I was thinking, do they do that the whole time? I hope not, And so, and again, you're right. They can go into other topics and, things that they're teaching them that, again, it used to be a lot more fun, I think, for kids. It'd be so basic, so easy. Run, play, have fun, don't get hurt, stay out of danger, and then that's it. Now, we have turned raising children, I believe, almost into some type of structure that's more complicated. Less is more sometimes. And now it's like the opposite. It's like, no, we need to focus on things that might be just again, and I'm not trying to pick on technology, but I'm saying that that's one of the things that's probably a result of that. So that's a good point. The World Health Organization recommends that children need to limit their screen time, and what they need to do is move more. And we know this, but unfortunately, a lot of things are becoming more convenient, right? We're learning that even something as basic that for us, when the TVs were invented, then somebody invented the remote control and said, guess what? You don't have to walk to your TV and change the channel. You could do it right there from your couch, right? And then there's other items that we've seen that are over time. I thought, one of the most ridiculous things I saw in recent time was a remote control for someone's phone. I was like, why the heck would they need right? I mean, you got the phone right there. So, okay, I'm going to put the phone there. I got my remote control. Oh, that was so much more convenient. I don't understand that one, but maybe someone else can explain that better to me. So anyway, we're going to go into more depth on the physical issues, right, related to screen time. But what about the mental issues and the psychological impact? Kind of like what you were just getting at, right? So this is problematic, especially in the last 5 years, right? We have seen a pandemic that has really divided people and been just a really horrible negative influence and impact of society, because it's just really, think about everything that it's done to us and the kids too. Again, just you see anxiety go up, you've seen depression skyrocket, you've seen suicides increase. Unfortunately, all of this is true. And this is another one that's a problem too. Teens using screens more than 5 hours a day show significantly higher mental health concerns. I could believe that. Just turn on the news or turn on social media. Is it ever positive? No. Most times it's pretty negative, right? Any news source, any social media, click and bait is what they call it. If it bleeds, it reads. You've heard this, right? The first thing that we usually do when we open up a paper, we might go to the obituary section, or we might look at what tragedy happened today, or you turn on the news. Oh, here's our headline. This is a shooting that happened today. This is the natural disaster that occurred over here. Everything is just, I hate that, unfortunately. It's really negative energy. So what can we do about that? Maybe one of the things is to cut this number down and tell these teens, hey, maybe 5 hours might be a little too much. Let's cut it in half. And then from there, try to do better, right? Because they don't need it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Does this apply to people in our age group as well? I mean, can we get depressed?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, absolutely.
Anxiety?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, good question. See, like the thing, and it's going to go a little bit more into detail too, because when you're talking about the screen time being a negative impact, that's for sure. There's studies, in fact, that will show that seniors who spend more time on devices and less time doing things like coming to like this place, for example, or any type of social settings, will experience a higher increased anxiety and stress and depression. That's very, very empirical. It's certain. I mean, you're right. That's a very good point.
We just have a friend who committed suicide, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
probably because he was at home and not. He even had a girlfriend, but yet somehow there must have been something negative affecting him.
Ah, wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's terrible. And your story I've heard also very frequently, unfortunately. That's really sad. Yeah, I mean that's a very, very important issue, and we see it, and we've all of us have heard stories like that too, unfortunately. But that kind of goes to what you were saying. I mean, that's definitely
But seniors are having more health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Combine the health issues with not being out at the senior center or in the neighborhood. I think that's what caused this person to commit suicide.
I could believe that. Yeah, that goes with the research. What you're saying.
How old was he?
60, late 60s, because he was already retired, or maybe early 70s.
Oh, wow.
Still had a hope. But, when you're in your 80s and 90s, you'll have another 20, 30 years or more.
These days, for sure. I mean, we're seeing more centenarians living, like people over 100, because modern medicine and technology is helping us live a lot longer. So the average life expectancy continues to rise. And so you're right. That is too young in 60s. I mean, that's almost a halfway point for most of us in here. unfortunately. Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. Gosh. But so again, it can affect teens, it can affect seniors, and so nobody's exempt from that, unfortunately. And then going back to the kids for a minute here, we're seeing more and more things like, and again, when I was growing up, I never even heard of what ADD, ADHD was, even autism. That was fairly new to me when I was growing up. I was like, wow. Usually it was just something that, okay, somebody might have a learning disability, there might be special needs, but now it is classified into all of these different categories that we're seeing that are psychologically, affected from things like the screen exposure, like they're talking about. And so one problem is that this kind of statement here, fast-paced content conditioning the brain for constant stimulation, and that's problematic. A lot of kids now that you see, like for example, a grocery store, and they're at the cashier line and they're saying to their mommy, I want this candy bar, I want that drink. Very common because it's all impulse buying, and their brains are just wired to something. What's next? What's going on here? What is happening? Oh, there's a candy bar, squirrel, let me go chase it. Everything's happening, so they're just thinking like that. Their brain is just going 100 miles an hour. And so when that happens, that's unfortunately causing some of the other problems that we're seeing with kids. And we're seeing that all the time. I mean, I know you see it as well, like with kids and grandkids. And it's just becoming something that, what's going on here? Why are children being so disrespectful, disruptive, and not being able to pay attention like they should? Like, again, I mean, yeah, kids can be kids, but it's different now, I believe. I mean, we've seen that. It's on a different level. I mean, I hate to say this, but again, the kids that are at my oldest and youngest, actually, yeah, my two oldest kids, I should say, at their school. So that we're talking about kids from about 9 to 10 to 11. They have their own iPhones now, and so they were making fun of me. I have an iPhone 13, and one of my oldest son's friend was saying, "You have an iPhone 13? That's so ancient." They have a 17. And it's like, wow, this is crazy. And of course, my kids are yelling at me, like, why don't we have an iPhone? Because we haven't gone that far yet. And it's like, we'll talk about that later. But that's problematic. And then another issue, right? Social skills, big one right here. This slide we could probably spend the whole rest of 30 minutes on. I'll try to get through this one as fast as I can. But what's going on right now, for example, as these kids are aging, they're going to go to these job interviews and they're going to be lost. They're going to sit down there, and the boss is going to be like, gosh, this person doesn't know how to talk like a human, and interact. Because again, before technology with devices and such, and becoming so reliant on social media and just the whole screen, we're seeing a lot of people that are becoming just too dependent on that and not able to be resourceful. And that goes with other things like making friends, having relationships, and being able to do their own type of homework and research. Now with AI, that's not even in this presentation, but it should be. Now with AI, that's a whole nother Pandora's box of what is that going to do to our generation coming forward, to where they're limited on not being able to know how to research, how to do critical thinking, how to analyze properly, right? So that's a big, big problem. But, again, growing up, we learned this because you had no choice, right? We were out there. We learn through team engagement. The real world works by working with others, by interacting with others interpersonally, and knowing people's tones and attitudes and how to match their chemistry. They don't get any of that when they're on a phone or a tablet or whatever. When they're on a 4 or 5 hour car ride on a trip, they have to have a device in front of them, right? Not like the old days. We would sit there on a 4 or 5 hour trip. What would we do? We would daydream. We would be creative. It would stimulate our brain naturally, right? We would think and be like, oh gosh, I can create a story. I can create whatever, some kind of concept in my mind. Now, instead of the brain cells working, what's happening? They're just looking at something else to entertain them and destroying the capacity and the potential. AI, in my opinion, I'm going to do a presentation on that one in the near future. That we're going to see an issue with causing potential to be decreased and minimized, because already we're seeing it in academia, for example. A lot of professors are being too reliant on being tracking ChatGPT and AI and all the others, and instead of doing the homework themselves, they're just typing it in real quick, just kind of like a Google search, and they're just playing it out there and putting it there for students and so forth, and students are doing the same thing. We're going to get to a point where we're kind of dumbing down, and we're going to get down here, we're going to be talking like cavemen to each other eventually someday. I don't know if it continues that way, maybe. Hopefully not. Okay, here we go. So again, us as parents, us as grandparents, what can we do? Now this is the part where the presentation is going to take a little shift here. This is now where we're going to talk about, okay, we know all the issues and problems, right? And again, it goes back to the relationship of the posture too that we're going to see. What can we do? We can be good habits so that those creatures that we're around can develop the habits. Because with kids, you know, they're so impressionable. They look up to both their parents, their grandparents, whoever their influences are, and they copy them, right? They always watch us, don't they? So if we're sitting there at our restaurant and on our device, what are they going to do, right? If we're driving in our car and we're texting, which we should not be doing, right? Certainly. We don't want them learning that when they learn how to drive, and so forth. So we get the point. You know, we can do things like going out for a walk, playing tag, go chase with them, play hide and seek, things we don't do anymore that we should be doing. Some of the things that we did back in the old school days are actually better and preferable, and we should be bringing some of that back, hopefully. Not everything today is perfect and better, and that's a good example. This slide right here, case in point to what we should be doing with the younger generation. What other stuff can seniors do to help? So I said this in the very beginning. Technology is certainly not the enemy, right? When the internet came out, teachers and professors, some were critical because they're like, well, gosh, now you don't need a calculator anymore. Now we've got the answers right there. We could just Google it or what have you. And now with AI, same thing. We could just say, well, we're going to use our brains less. Not necessarily, as long as we teach some of those components the right way. For example, you know, we can teach things like better posture, better balance, movement, connection, how to, just be a kid. And again, as us as seniors, we can lead by example and show the younger generation what they should do. Some of the things that blow younger people away is when they see a senior who's really physically fit or who's real mobile. I don't remember who this presenter was, but it was years ago, and he was a senior. He's like in his late 80s. And it was something to do with, it wasn't even my class, but I remember this. This is distinct, that he had the best posture. He was like 88, 89 years old. He had the best posture. And when he walked and he was presenting, he was so smooth and fluid. And I was like, wow, that really had a great impact on me. And he did something I couldn't do. He would actually, and you've probably seen this before, he would sit down on the floor from here, crisscross Indian style, without using his hands, and then he would pop right back up and stand up. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's something I could try to live up to, because I can't do that. And so again, like seeing something like that is very influential. And again, it's the posture. I remember one thing he did mention about, you've heard this, was the ballerina, because somebody asked, how do you have such perfect posture? And he used the ballerina example. Like ballerinas are taught that you would pull the string above the head and it brings them taller. Because what happens when we lift our head up and when we bring our shoulders back, we are a few inches taller just from that alone. You could do that standing or sitting. Again, we're going to get to the part here. We're going to do some of those exercises together. So again, kind of the real message, it's just kind of encouraging doing these activities, and also what to do physically, things like sitting taller, moving, being active. You know, those are so important for all of us. And again, I mentioned this a few moments ago, to self-reflect. I'm looking at this saying, you know what, I could probably do some more of that. And that's, you know, important. You know, if we have, depending on how many days a week do we exercise, how many days do we go walking, do we get to our hobbies that we used to do that we have fun at? Can we pick up a new hobby that's fun? Something that doesn't have to do with technology. You know, what's something that, have we played mahjong or bridge or, you know, a different card game, or met with groups for game night? Things like that should be encouraged to bring back. So, you know, in research, this is good news here. So if we have an upright posture, that kind of links to having a better mood, all right? And, you know, it can also help out our self-confidence and engage with others more too, with better posture. That's one of the things, if you see celebrities, actors, politicians, one of the things that they're taught from day one is to make sure that they have training literally on how to stand correctly and have neutral spine. They literally spend hours on this with them, reinforcing them. They have team members that will tell them and reinforce to them hey, make sure, neutral spine, neutral spine. They'll be telling them all the time, because when you're on television or if you're in a public presentation setting, you always want to make sure that you look your best in that terms, because if somebody catches somebody slouching over and looking forwards, that's one of the things that would be critical of that person. Television and movies and TV, let's face it, it's an aesthetic thing. And so when they have really good posture, they're taught that, and they're taught that with literal lesson plans that they're learning. And so, one of the things that we need to learn with the head too, again, we talked about this earlier, with our center of our gravity, that goes back to when people might fall. If their head is forward, somebody who has natural kyphosis, they're probably going to have a more danger or a risk of taking that fall. And so what can we do? We're going to look at some of the exercises with chin tucks. That's one of the things before the presentation started, one of the videos that you saw in the video that he was demonstrating, we'll demonstrate it together too. And so again, that's one of the things we have to, improve and enhance, is making sure we don't fall. And looking at, this is one of the slides I promised earlier that I want to take a look at here. The C shape is these two on the left, the first one and the second one that I was mentioning. One of the ways, by the way, a really smart physical therapist helped me out on this, because she noticed I used to have really horrible lower back problems, and that was just injury related. So anyway, one of the things that I learned from her was not only when we're standing, but also when we're sitting, we want to make sure we avoid the letter C. So for example, when we're at home Netflix watching or watching a movie and we're sitting down, to avoid that C shape that we want to make sure that we're not, a C-shaped sitting might look like this too, like we're like this. This is a lot of teens, watch the younger generation, a lot of them sit like this, and you see the natural C of my spine. What should be happening when we're sitting is sitting up, just literally sitting up and having the natural. On the third one there, you see that's the S curve. You should have inward spine here, outward as it goes down to the thoracic, and then the lower lumbar, it goes inward again, so that it creates the S of your spine. So whenever you're self-evaluating, when you're sitting or standing, always ask yourself, am I the letter S right now? And you'll know that because, again, you'll feel the inward of the spine come here, the outward from the high chest, and then the lower back going back inward again, that it's not flat, flush up against the seat. Am I the letter C, like this? So that's what we want to avoid. I do a lot of driving. So when I'm driving, one of the things that helps me with that, and this isn't the presentation, but I have a lower lumbar pillow that I put in my car seat, and a seat for the coccyx, for your posterior, that keeps me upright. Because some of this, you probably have it in your cars, I'm sure. You've seen some of the cars have those self-built ergonometer, seats that adjust for that, where they might have this sticking you forward and a higher seat in the back to keep the coccyx up. That's important. And so that will naturally promote, even when you're standing too, ask yourself, am I neutral spine? Not only from the sagittal plane, but from the frontal plane. Am I not like this? Making sure that you're nice and even and straight. Ballerina, pull the pin up and then keep yourself tall. Okay, so as I mentioned, sitting tall. Looks like everybody in here is sitting tall. Good. Pull the chin back. Pull the chin back. Literally, just bringing the chin back. Some of us, it might feel unnatural. Be like, wait, that doesn't feel right. But really, look in the mirror next time. Record yourself. See what you look like with the chin back. Breathing. We mentioned, 30% lung capacity is the potential that you can cut when you're restricting like this. But when you're nice and tall, it allows you to expand the lungs and be able to talk fully from your max potential of your capacity of your lungs. So some of the other things that are important is when your posture declines, we could suffer from a weaker upper back, a tighter chest, the patterns of habit and screen positioning. Those are things that it affects. So the reason why it's saying weaker upper back, when we're like this, we're overstretching our back. Okay, so again, when we're pulled forward like this, you're getting too much stretch in the back. And what we're doing, why the tighter chest, we're working the chest. In other words, kind of adduction and flexion of the chest, that it's too tightened because I'm tightening that. So to do the opposite, what we want to do, we'd probably want to stretch the chest. Like remember the door example in the video when we first started today? That will do the opposite. That will stretch the chest and that will flex the back so that it goes backwards, what it should be doing, that'll help reverse that. And that's the great thing. Everything we're talking about, it literally is reversible. And you can do it at any age too, and that's the great thing. You can only get better. So these are the muscles that kind of get weak, as I was mentioning: trapezoids, mid-trapezius, lower trapezius, rear deltoids, back of the shoulders. Those are the muscles that get weakened. The ones that get tightened are, like I mentioned, the chest, the pectorals, the upper trapezius, like right up here, when we get really tight, because that neck, when it's forward, you're tightening this right here. And the levator scapula, any of those muscles, that's why massage therapists know if anybody in here gets a massage, you lie down at a table, the therapist already knows, oh yeah, your upper back and your neck, I bet it's tight, right? Of course, because that's how we all are naturally. 90% of the people that the chiropractor and massage therapist would see would have that in agreement. And then so, again, to help this, I encourage everyone in here, exercises to strengthen the back. Stretch the front, meaning stretch the chest, and then practice this every day. Why don't we take a look at some of these and you could do these right at the comfort of your own chair. Some of these you can do, some of you can't because of equipment or logistics. So I'll make sure we guide us through these. This one we can do, right? 10 times we would pull back for 5 seconds. So after 5 seconds, you release. You do it again for 5 seconds. You do it 10 times a day. That's a challenge that I'm going to ask everyone to do from now on. Do this every morning or every evening. Can you do it too much? That's one question. No, you can't. That's okay. You can do it in the morning and evening. So do 20 a day if you want to do that. Because again, what the chin tucks do, like the video was mentioning, was that it promotes the head to want to be the way it's naturally supposed to be, like a newborn infant. A newborn infant doesn't have to do chin tucks backwards, because they are naturally made that way. They haven't done anything detrimental like the stuff we're taking a look at. Exercise number 2, shoulder blade squeeze. Okay, so we talked about the shoulders being real tight and tense and weakened, so we want to just stretch those shoulder blades by bringing them back like this and pinching your shoulder blades back, and you're going to hold it for about 5 seconds and do that 10 times a day. Now, one of the things is that they have the doorway stretch, and that's okay. You can also compensate some other way. If you have a corner in your house, most of us do, an open corner, that is the best way to do it. So I'll show you right here. You're going to take your arms up 90 degrees, and you're going to take one foot staggeredly forward, and then you're going to push in like this, and I really feel that in the back of my shoulders, and that's going to mimic that door frame stretch that we did. Same thing, you can hold it for about 5 seconds and do it 10 times. Does it matter which foot is forward? It doesn't. For balance and symmetry though, if you're going to do that twice a day, do the left foot forward once and then do the right foot forward the other time. That way, just think balance all the time. Be symmetrical whenever possible. Resistance band pull apart. So I know everybody in here has either uses this. I know that these are available with Fate Senior Services or anywhere else you go. This thing probably costs about $5 to $10 on Amazon, so anybody in here has the capability to use it. And what you do on pull-aparts is you're just going to literally pull, and you're just going to bring it in. So when you pull this apart, what I'm doing is I'm bringing it here and strengthening my upper back. Okay, this is a great one, by the way. Physical therapists love to do this one with their patients. This right here, as you're doing it, you really, really feel those back muscles doing all the work. And it's stretching my chest too, by the way. And so again, if that's too hard, just bring it wider out and do it. Some of these bands are thicker than others. So I would encourage you, if you haven't done this one before, this color is a pretty thick band. Go with a lighter, thinner band like a yellow or a green. Usually they're color-coded. The blue and the reds are usually the heavier ones. And again, if you want to challenge yourself, put them closer in and really, really pull them apart, and that's really working the back muscles that you can really feel.
Do you have something that works on the lower back?
Yes, certainly. I'll show you one that's not on the slide. So lower back, one of the things that you can do, I'll try my best to demonstrate, but you would do something that's called a bird dog. I don't think that's in the, you know what a bird is? Anybody in here know what a bird dog is? If you do, come on. No, I'm just kidding. I'll show you. So you're going to be on all fours, and you're going to reach. Now I'm doing the opposite arm, opposite leg. I'm doing the right arm and left leg. I'm reaching as far as I can, and I'm pulling my lower back apart like I'm literally trying to touch that wall with my hand. I'm trying to touch the wall behind me with my foot. And what it's doing is that it's taking the extremities and at the base of the lower back, really pulling. So. Oh yeah, certainly. And if you if you Google search bird dog, this is what the exercise is. Just Google search bird dog, and you would just have that done on each side. This is a great one to do, by the way, every morning, because anybody in here besides me real stiff and tight first thing in the morning when you get out of bed, that one will really help loosen things up. And some others too, like this one right here, the back to the wall. Here's one for 30 seconds. Well, I guess maybe right here. So, well, I'd rather show you from the side view, I guess. So I'll do it on both. So here's the wall, and you're going to have hips glued to the wall, shoulders glued to the wall, and the head back here. And while you're doing it, you're going to be just holding it for about half a minute. Okay. And so what is that doing? That literally, I feel really tall right now. That's not normal, but that really is neutral. Because when you do this for 30 seconds a day, that's going to retrain your body to wake up and say, wow, that's how I'm supposed to be. I'll show different angles. So here, again.
So you don't have your palms against.
You could, whatever's more comfortable.
Because I do that.
Yep.
Without my shoes on, 5 minutes a day.
That's awesome. 5 minutes? Like the whole time 5 minutes?
Yes, I time.
That's awesome. Good. That's great. If you do that for 5 minutes a day, I know your posture's got to be really, really solid then. So yeah, hands could go anywhere. They can go against it. And you're just, again, the key on this is just making sure that everything up is glued to the wall. And you're doing it the right way then. I like that point too. Yeah, because really anatomically, when you take the shoes off, that's more natural to how your body is. So that's a really good idea. I like that. Great suggestion. And then the seated row, this one, again, we're back to our band. You get the point of these exercises. A lot of them, it's not showing us push-ups, is it? It's not showing us, for example, like squats, which, by the way, are fine. Those are great. What it's showing us are these exercises where we're really working the back muscle. So in this case, I'm rowing, I'm pulling the elbows back, and I want to sit up nice and tall with good posture. You can make this one a little harder by zigzag crisscrossing your hands and widening the stance. And now I'm really having to pull that. And you're just really working the lat muscles, the back. And again, what is it doing? When your chest is out like this, it's really stretching that chest. So now I really feel that in the back doing all the work on those. Those are great. That's an excellent one. And I think we have one more here too. So the chest stretch, I showed you already the corner one. We remember that. That's great for the chest. You can also do that against a door frame, as it mentioned. Maybe this window opening too. You can do one arm at a time. So if I turn this way, it's really stretching here on the left side of my chest in this case. I would hold it for 20 seconds. Symmetry, I got to do the other side. So I would take my arm, probably this would be better here, and I would turn and twist and have it stretch and hold it for 20 seconds. To me, those are preferable. If you don't have access to a wall, let's say that you're sitting, or even right now, you could do this. You can take your arms and open them up right here, just like that, and you'll really feel a good stretch. And while you're doing it, look up to the ceiling. And again, after you do this for about 20 seconds, I guarantee you're going to feel energy. You're going to feel more positive, beneficial energy, and just more relaxation, less stress, and more awakened too. It'll feel really, really good doing that.
How often do you do that? Not how often. How many times?
Oh, good question. 10 times would be good. Yeah. But if you're doing that wall hold for 5 minutes, that might not be enough. So I would say any of these, they say, reserve like 10 to 15 minutes of stretching. So really, when you're holding a stretch from 10 to 30 seconds, that's really good. But again, that's fine. So
with against the wall, my mother-in-law, who was 86, was visiting, and her doctor told her to do that.
That's great. Yeah, that's really good advice.
So then we started.
Sounds like a smart doctor. Yeah, if I had to guess, I bet that doctor had good alignment too with their posture as well. That's terrific. Here's the answer to what you were asking about. So it says that all of these you could do a 5-minute daily routine. But again, besides the wall set, you can take 5 minutes, say, on some of those exercises that we were doing. There were some that weren't on here, like, for example, the bird dogs. You can do something called Superman's or swimmer's rows. You might be familiar with. I see a lot of nodding of the heads. A lot of these you can Google search and you can look up. There's really great resources, by the way, that have these. Like, for example, the American College of Sports Medicine, the American Council of Exercise, Cooper Institute. different organizations that have all of these. YouTube is my favorite, best resource that I tell people. I say, go to YouTube, type in that exercise. I guarantee you're going to you'll have a whole bunch of excellent content. Yeah, the content on YouTube is very underrated, and it's amazing. Okay, now again, getting back to the things, what else can we do to help ourselves? So here's one. With the phone, you notice that the natural inclination for the phones, you see people like this all the time. Right, so one of the things is challenge yourself. I know it feels weird, but hold your phone like this, just hold it straight up. That right there forces our head to have to go up. People that are on a laptop, for example, if they're at a desk and they're all like naturally slouched forward, one of the best things that was invented for people still in the corporate world or have their own home office is to have a desk that elevates. And if it does, elevate it high. If I don't have one. If I had one, I would have it so that I'm looking up while I'm working. Not only just like a little higher, I would have it up here, or maybe keep the keyboard here, but just looking up. That's forcing my head to be up in good alignment, right? That's what I would do personally if I had that option. And, take posture breaks, during the day. Try to remind yourself, oh yeah, I've got to make sure that I take a little stretch here and walk off. Do a walk. Walking is wonderful. Use reminders. 30-minute rule, every 30 minutes, reset your posture. So that would be great. Every 30 minutes during the day, not 5 minutes, but maybe, if you're doing this every 30 minutes, give yourself 30 seconds or a minute and do this every day, like every 30 minutes. Do that posture reset. Also check other things. You could do those chin tucks. You could do some of those other exercises that we were talking about in the stretches. So always think tall spine, right? Because again, as I mentioned, from here versus here, I'm about 3 or 4 inches taller already. My shoulders are back and my chin is up. And I have really, again, improved my posture in that case. Some of the things, other benefits, reduction of pain, increasing breathing, and better posture too. That's so vital with, helping our posture and our balance out too. So when we're walking, for example, if we have a better understanding of neutral spine and we're walking with good stance, this helps all of the peripheral vision and everything that we're seeing when we're walking versus this. I've cut and limited what I'm looking at and have made my head heavier and the angle of my spine worse. I mentioned this a few minutes ago. Is it too late to get started? No, absolutely not. All of the things we're talking about, we can do right now and start it today. So you ask yourself these questions. This is rhetorical, but think about these. Do you feel shorter? Do you feel stiff? Do you feel rounded? If you do, then again, hopefully those exercises will help. Just some motivational talking here, not being stuck, posture's trainable, absolutely. So the key takeaways for today, hopefully, is just being, better awareness, helping your strength to combat some of the issues that we have, and making it a daily routine. Make sure that this is something that we're always doing every single day. Just a summary slide of kind of what we talked about here earlier. Hopefully this is a little bit helpful with content and just things to think about. Because again, as I mentioned, I reiterate, this is so important right now, more than ever. I think this presentation might be arguably one of the most important presentations I've done to date. Because again, when I think about topics, there are topics that to us, we might think, oh, that's common sense. Yeah, eating's right, exercise, I need enough sleep, right? Women's health. All of those are important, but this is the silent epidemic, the one that we just covered just now. This is something we're not addressing enough of. Might be in the back of our mind, but hopefully now we've really opened it to the front of our brains and our eyes, and we're going to go and tell those who are our important ones, our husbands, our kids, our grandchildren, or whoever, our friends, some of the things that we're learning here. Very empirical list of references, and again, you're talking about some of the big hitters like World Health Organization, Mayo Clinic, and the rest of them. So again, great references that go into this slide that we just covered. And so with that said, I'm going to ask one last question here. I'm going to throw the ball out there. What's one new idea you can do to improve your spinal health and improve the posture reset for ourselves? So we're about 5 minutes till. I think we leave about 5 minutes for a little question and answer at this point. So with that said, I'm going to do this. Again, we have 5 minutes. Because it's being recorded, my microphone won't be able to pick you up too great. So when you ask your question, and plus there's others in the room, I'm going to repeat the question loud and clear before I answer it, or have a comment or any kind of statement that you want to make with it. Please let me know. Now's the time. So with that, I'll open up the room for a little discussion. Yes, ma'am, in the back. Mm-hmm.
Could you put the slide that was before that was back?
Oh, yes, please. Sure, absolutely. So, yeah, this is the one. Oops. I thought I could go backwards, but for some reason, it should let me go back. Let me try it this way. There it goes, right there. Yeah. So, these are wonderful resources. If you're to go on the internet and you type any of these in, they'll come right up. You might not be able to get the whole article, but you can certainly get an abstract. Sometimes you could get the whole article, but again, this just gives you different areas just to look at and say, well, maybe I can check that website out. Maybe I can go and look at what's on that journal, or what is found on this book here, what have you. But again, a lot of the resources, as you can tell too, they're pretty current. They're only, for the most part, a lot of them are within the last 5 years or so. So any other questions at all before we adjourn? Hopefully, did we get everything covered? Yes, ma'am.
What if, when I'm watching TV, I actually I'm on the couch?
Okay, yeah, good. Yeah, so good question. She was asking if she's on the TV or the couch and she's watching her favorite movie and the romance scene's about to come on and she's really getting into it. She's lying like this. Is that better? Worse. That's okay. We're not gonna. If you're like that the whole 2 hours, I would just say posture reset. Going the other way. Yeah, symmetry, right?
I can't stand it more than half an hour, so I changed the other cut.
That's already good. That's a lot better than staying in that position. Do other things. Like it said, every 30 minutes, pause, go up and go against the wall. Do some of the chin tucks. Those are great to do.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
My husband, he has one of those recliners.
Yes.
So he does that. Is
And
that better?
so the question, her husband has a recliner where he's sitting way back like this. And really, in posture, the answer to that is not to be like that for a long period of time. So again, I would just reiterate, when he's like that, to make sure either if he's going to do it, stretch, and especially after he's done with it, tell him, let's go for a walk, or seriously, yeah, get on the floor, do those stretches, and that'll really help a lot. Yeah, because again, that's fine, on a recliner, that's okay. Yes.
What kind of a movie is it sleeping?
No,
I didn't know it was just sleeping on your back, but I find that sleeping on my side is better. I'm sleeping on my side, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, so like in the anatomical best position really to be at is literally to be like this. If we were to be perfect sleepers, and it feels weird, it looks weird, but that's really the best way that our spine's supposed to be. Now, if on your side, what's going on is right here already, my knees collapsing, my shoulders being put a lot of pressure on, and this is stretching. You could put a pillow, as you heard, between the knees, which you already do, obviously. And there's other things that you could do, put an extra comfort support for the head and things like that. But, it's okay. I mean, if you're sleeping on your side, that's not a problem. That's fine.
My doctors have recommended to change the inclination of the upper part of the bed so that you don't have the reverse juices coming from your stomach.
Oh, right, yeah, for like.
So how do you? Is that going to be bad or good? I mean, the other thing I know is that when you're on your back, your the vagus nerve is somehow.
Yeah, I know where you're getting at. So the question was kind of like, for example, like the talking about the incline for the bed, and that's to combat things like the stomach acid, so that it makes sure that it goes down. Because my mom had the reflux problem with acid, and she had the 45-degree angle pillow that she's supposed to use. So that's, I mean, again, if we have to do that, that's what we have to do.
I think 45, but
Or that might be a different angle. Yeah, it could be a 12, Hers was pretty pronounced. Hers was literally at a 45-degree angle. But if whatever you're prescribed at, I would say use it. That's okay. I mean, you have to really for that condition. And then, as far as like just lying on your back, if there is an issue and a problem and you're lying like literally on your back on the floor and you're feeling like this doesn't feel comfortable, or I'm hurt, or I'm stiff, then I would suggest don't do it then. Go and defer to whatever better sleep pattern works for yourself. I mean, yeah, that's not the all be all end all for everybody. So again, it's just a generic kind of, this is the way that we were created with our spine for being neutral. But at the same point, if people are better to sleep in a different position or a different angle, then that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So with that said, we're right on time. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn and dismiss us as we are hitting to 2:30 now. So just wanted to thank you all for your time and appreciate you coming out. Just a final thing, contact information is on the little table as you leave. If you didn't sign in, I ask you to please do so, and there might have been an evaluation form too, I think, as well too. Any other things before we get out of here then, other than that? Yes, sir. Yes.
I'd like to thank you very much for that excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you too. Likewise. All right. Nice to meet all of you, and look forward to seeing you again next time too. Thanks again.